All right, Mines, let's talk LSU Tigers football here for a little bit. Of course, LSU has had one heck of an offseason, made a lot of big time moves in the transfer portal, in the recruiting game. It looks like they're gearing up for one heck of a season, going toe to toe with the likes of Alabama and their own division of the SEC, potentially Georgia or Tennessee. Out of the other half of the SEC, LSU looks really good. And we have a great report out of spring ball for LSU Tigers that shows about some newcomers into the program and how impressive they've been.
Yeah, Nick, there's a lot of new additions on this LSU team to look forward to in spring ball. You can talk about transfer portal guys all day, but that's not what we want to know. Today, I want to know from the fans, who's your favorite freshman that is on the team so far? Let us know in the comments below which freshman you think, maybe especially during this spring ball period, has stood out to you the most, that you're the most excited to see down the stretch. Let us know in the comments below. But Nick, what is the exciting news down in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, so it's one of the more interesting developments in college football, really the last decade or so, is it used to be freshmen coming in, wouldn't play, they'd obviously get redshirted, and then they'd be maybe a backup or a sub-team guy their first year or something like that, as they had to build up their bodies and get football smarts up to be play at the level required of an SEC program. But when you have all these 11-on-11 camps, these 7-on-7 camps, and obviously these football programs at the high school level get more and more advanced, and frankly, some of them at the middle school level, a lot of these guys, these freshmen, these 17 and 18-year-old kids can come in and make big impacts right away. And there's two in particular that were highlighted out of LSU spring ball. This is according to the Daily Advertiser, which is out of Lafayette. Here's from the report here. LSU football lost a handful of wide receivers this offseason. Jeray Jenkins departed for the NFL draft. Jake Beck transferred to TCU, and Kayshon Boutte committed to returning and then reverse course, also entering his name into the NFL draft. For most schools, losing that many veteran pieces would hinder room for the next season. But at LSU, the Tigers enter 2023 with an arguably better group, and much of the reason why is because of freshman early enrollees Kyle Parker and Jalen Brown. This is according to Mike Denbrock, of course, the LSU offensive coordinator. Quote, "These two guys aren't out of place." Quote, "These guys both have made explosive plays down the field. They've made contested catches." All right, Mike. So obviously LSU is, I think, in my opinion, it's kind of been under the radar. They are one of the preeminent programs with wide receiver talent. I mean, go back all the way to the Landry Beckham days. Obviously, got guys like Jamar Chase. They know how to churn out top flight wide receivers. They've done it for the past 20 years or so. And it looks like they potentially have two young freshmen coming in, falling into that same mold, at least if you listen to the LSU coaching staff. And listen, they have no reason to lie. So, Miles, give me your thoughts on these two new LSU playmakers and the impact they could have for this program, obviously in the short term, but in the long term as well.
Yeah, Nick, I like both of these guys. You see a guy like Parker, he comes in, he's a big physical guy, but Kelly also talks about his matureness. He's been very mature since he's come in. He's been dominating with his physicality in practice, and he says it's pretty impressive. But I like Brown a little bit more. I think he's a little bit more dynamic, fun to watch. He might be a little bit undersized, but he has elite speed, Nick. Big play guy, and he can take the tops off of all kinds of coverages. And Kelly's already given him a pretty high comp to an NFL guy. If you look at Will Fuller, formerly with the Texans, big time burner, could take off the top. Now, if Brown can be healthy, Will Fuller looked like the man when he was in the NFL, but he just was very fragile. He was not able to stay healthy throughout his career there. But a comp to a guy like Will Fuller, I think, is very impressive. That just shows that Brown has elite speed and he's able to do a lot. I think he's going to bring a big time, presence to this LSU offense. And as you said, they have many big time receivers that's come from this school throughout its history. But I think both of these guys, having two freshmen like this come in, Jaden Daniels is going to have a field day, Nick. He's got all kinds of targets, and the article goes even talk about that these two guys, as good as they may have seemed, probably aren't even going to be the top target on the team. I think it's going to be Malik Neighbors is going to be the top guy. But having two guys like this waiting in the wings to break out, but being your second, third, fourth option, whatever the case may be, that is so huge for this LSU team, as we've talked about multiple times already, has always been known for having a plethora of top-tier wide receivers, Nick.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I think to win at the higher levels of college football, you can't just have one or two elite playmakers on the outside, right? What Georgia has done, and frankly, they've had some big play guys of their own, but what they've done is sort of just an aberration, just mainly just just because of their defense and their running game and things like that. Normally you have to win like Alabama has won historically, or like Ohio State was very successful, obviously, for a number of years as well. And of course, LSU under Joe Burrow, the same thing, Clemson under Trevor Lawrence with the guys they had on the outside. Long story short, Miles, you need a lot of quality wide receivers, and you need a lot of different wide receivers to fill in different roles. Whether you have a big physical guy on the outside who wins 50-50 balls, whether you have a guy with elite level speed who can take the top off of defense, like you were alluding to, or you have a guy who works zone coverage underneath. No matter what, you need a plethora of an elite level talent, skill players, especially at the wide receiver position, that can make plays in a multitude of different ways to beat a bunch of different coverages and a bunch of different personnel. And that's the recipe for long-term success, in my opinion, in major college football. And that's why I think this is a great sign for LSU going forward, because if they can build a deep wide receiver group, and it sounds like they have the people in place right now, this team could be even better than a lot of people project, which would be absolutely scary for a lot of their opponents.